Right. Oh, right. Okay, do I have my Senate here? Okay, perfect. We also have snacks and coffee for anyone who is interested. I will now call together the Academic Senate meeting of November 28, 2018. Our first order of business is public comment. So I want to remind our speakers that your limit is 3 minutes. And we don't discuss things during public comment. I want to point out that later in the agenda, item 6.1 is when the Senate is going to be discussing this. Okay? So our first speaker is Chelsea here. Hi, Chelsea. And also, folks, we are taping this meeting via Zoom. It's not ideal. It's going to give us the whole group. There's going to be a pretty significant echo, and it's going to take them about 5 days to get it captioned and ready for publication. But please remember that you are being videotaped for files that will be posted online. Chelsea?
Yeah. Over here or where?
I honestly don't know how to answer that question, but I think you can come to the front or you can speak right there. Okay, I'm sorry. Again?
Because the camera's right there, right? So it'd be better if you're up here. That way
right
you can be heard better.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have to record that? No, it's done.
Dear Superintendent, President Beebe, the Board of Trustees, and Academic Senate. As members of the Santa Barbara City College community, we want to respond to the recent incident in which Vice President of Business Services, Lindsay Moss, used the N-word during a gender equity work group meeting. Even though Ms. Moss claims no ill intent with its usage, the impact and harm such a word causes must not be ignored. Therefore, to foster a campus culture in opposition to racism in all its forms, regardless of intentionality, we stand in solidarity with the Black Faculty and Staff Association, Black Student Union, SBCC Coalition for Justice, and SBCC Student Coalition for Justice. We request that their demands for appropriate response to this incident be met. Number 1, immediate resignation of Vice President Lindsay Moss for her use of a racial slur that goes against the mission and vision of Santa Barbara City College. Number 2, meaningful, ongoing, and in-person anti-racist training determined by the Equity Committee, Black Faculty and Staff Association, and the SBCC Coalition for Justice for all members of the SBCC Board of Trustees, President's Cabinet, deans, managers, and community leaders, work group leaders, and all other full and part-time members of the SBCC faculty and staff. Number 3, the establishment of an independent counsel or entity which will have the responsibility of reviewing harassment claims and determining the appropriate responses. In solidarity, Marisol Cota, Catherine Magnani, Danielle Gonzalez, Liz Youngerman, Antonia Antolano, Liz Aguirre Fuentes, Eric Flores, Gaby Morales, Joanna Moreno, Rosy Vidal Ayeras, Sabrina Barajas, Sergio Perez, Maria Morales, I'm sorry, this is the first time I've had this list, so if I butcher anybody's name, Glenn Schuler, Vanessa Levine, Sarah Gardinali, Robin Goodnow, Noel Gomez, Chelsea Lancaster, Mary Lou Puerta, Cynthia Munoz, Esmeralda Camarena, Paloma Arnold, Alejandra Martinez, Moises Cardenas, Anna Garcia, Dolores Howard, Marie Termate Martinson, Arnie Cooper, Deborah Gordon, Francisco Rodriguez, Susan Kipp, Juan Casillas Nunez, Yachio Roberts, Dana Wahlberg, Ignacio Fuente, Jordan Molina, Clara Oropesa, Jody Millward, David Starkey, Jennifer Baxton, Bonnie Bryan, Melissa Menendez, Chella Currington, Sandy Starkey, Annette Cordero, Margaret Prothero, Anita Cruz, Denise Bacchus, Eileen Bellix Camerhorn, Elvira Monica Laskowski Cajole. I'm sorry, I know I did that one. Tomas Carrasco, Craig Cook, Ruth Morales, Bronwyn Moore, Peter Rojas, Allison Chapin, Kaylin Noe, Pamela Gunther, Osiris Castaneda, Ellen Carey, Elizabeth Imhoff, Lauren Mendel, Kip Burks, Cameron Colson, Michelle Bone, David Starkey, Danielle Swinetek, Elizabeth Bowman, Tina Kistler, Justina Bueller, Tara Carter, Sarah Camille, Robbie Fisher, Chris Burnell, Carrie Hutchinson, Natalie,
Would you like to have?
John Johnson reading? No, I'm almost done. But the list is still going, so don't worry. Darianovich Napoleon, Regina Reed, Norma Bahena, Violet Garcia, Yvonne Ornelas Limon, and Rand Napoleon. Thank you.
Thank you. Simone. Simone Westcamp, hi.
I'll be reading a letter that was prepared by the Black Faculty and Staff Association. We recently became aware of Lindsay Mass's use of the N-word at the gender equity meeting held this past Wednesday. While she formally apologized to those present in the room and has agreed to enter diversity training, she has not formally apologized to the greater Black community of faculty and staff or students on this campus. We see her use of the N-word and subsequent actions as a senior administrator as a direct violation of our college's mission and vision statement. Her actions promote a culture of discriminatory practices. On behalf of the Santa Barbara City College Black Faculty and Staff Association, we demand that Lindsay Mas, Vice President, Business Services, submit her resignation immediately. We feel that this action would fully acknowledge her culpability in what she has done and partially atone for the hurt she has caused to the people at the meeting and to the Black members of the Santa Barbara City College community. Many of our Black students have been publicly harassed with the use of the N-word entering and exiting campus. The most recent account of the use of the N-word was publicly spewed in the library. In addition, a student also formally filed a complaint with an adjunct staff member using the N-word in the classroom. While these instances have been reported to officials or senior administrators on campus, no actions have been taken thus far. Each of these incidences make visible the lack of respect and protection of our Black students. Many of our Black students feel unsafe on campus, thus impacting their ability to focus and learn in a safe space without the fear of being attacked. It is hard for us as a community and institution to not only retain but also help Black students persist. We acknowledge that Santa Barbara City College has made efforts to create physical spaces so that programs such as the Emoji program could be adopted by our campus. However, we feel that there has been a lack of transparency and follow-through in investigating harassment claims. We request that there be an independent counsel or entity established, which will have the responsibility of reviewing these claims and establishing how to move forward without the guise of senior administration. Additionally, we also request that all board members, administrators, faculty, and staff obtain anti-racism training in person. In closing, we want to repeat our demand that Lindsay Mas, Vice President of Business Services, submit her resignation immediately. The purpose of education is not only to make future professionals and leaders in their intended fields of study, but also to make them well-rounded individuals. It is our responsibility as educators to make sure that our students are exposed to and embrace individuals from diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. We look forward to engaging in a more formal discussion on policies and procedures for a more inclusive campus.
Thank you. Ray, Napoleon?
Up here.
Probably this is the best place for visuals.
Hi, everyone. After my formal resignation from the Academic Senate 3 weeks ago, I can assure you I did not expect to find myself again here so soon. Nevertheless, here I am. It is my contention that it is overwhelmingly obvious that proper leadership could have circumvented a lot of the anguish on our campus experience. With the most recent situation, Dr. Beebe had immediately expressed real solidarity with and support for our Black colleagues and students. The call for Lindsay Mas's resignation might have instead been a call for dialogue and healing. Then again, if Dr. Beebe handled the last 8 to 9 months differently, perhaps Lindsay wouldn't have even been at a gender equity meeting at all. The racism and misogyny would still be here, but we'd be dealing with it in a constructive way rather than a deconstructive way. We now have 2 crises instead of 1. I left this table a few weeks ago in yet another topic. I needed to for my own self-preservation. I was told that I was out of order, and I most certainly was, but I was out of order for calling attention to the fact that our leadership has allowed a federal law known as Title IX to be misused and mishandled. And of course, not just my own Title IX complaint. I was being disruptive and I was called on it, and rightly so, but those that were disrupted before me that were defending our superintendent presidents for reasons that are still unclear to me weren't called on it. You're going to have a hard conversation today. Frankly, I'm glad I'm not here, as I wouldn't be constructive contributing member, as I have proven many times already, unfortunately. I am so bitter because so many have needlessly been hurt. I thank Patricia for supplying the faculty body with recommendations from our own Dr. Carrie Hutchinson. Some that include, do not create work groups, do not draft policy. How I wish that was provided 8 months ago when I sat in this very room at this very table, bitter that we were discussing new administrative procedures and the new gender work group, and I announced that I couldn't even get my complaints of sexual misconduct acknowledged on this campus by administration. Please make note of that material. Think about it. Please keep in mind today that many of the problems you're discussing and trying to fix as faculty leadership on this campus are because we have an ineffective superintendent president, an ineffective board of trustees, and other ineffective leadership. This campus is in turmoil because of superficial fixes for complex problems. And while complex, not at all unique to SBCC. You can't read a magazine or a newspaper without reading headlines that echo the events that have happened on this campus in the last 8 to 9 months. Seems obvious to me that by watching how things play out at other universities, colleges, companies, and places, that the #1 community college in the nation could navigate these hard times better. Instead, we have leadership that wants to continuously sweep things under the rug, blame the ones that are holding them accountable for their transgressions, and provide hallmark card responses to people who have been repeatedly hurt. We all deeply care about SBCC, its students, staff, faculty, and the community it serves. Make sure you keep that in mind today when you're having your hard discussion, and make sure you keep in mind today who continues to cause harm on this campus, who has the power to do so, and keep in mind those that are asking for accountability from those that have caused that harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Tina?
Dear colleagues, it's time to break the silence. I stand before you today to speak to all of you as leaders and stewards of this campus, our classrooms, the sacred spaces we inhabit daily, where we have the awesome honor and privilege to help shape the minds and hearts of the students we are accustomed to each semester. I want to stand up here to publicly say to our students that I am sorry that we, your teachers, your campus leaders, have failed you. I'm sorry that the experience of this campus has left many students scarred and hurt and depressed and disillusioned. We must act. We must speak on behalf of all of our students. For all who are not here and who have been marginalized and muted over the years, we, the faculty of this great campus, must collectively speak for them today and demand action. Lindsay is only one part of the larger problem. The problem starts at the top with our board and our president. It is the faculty who need to be the voice for change, and now is the time to speak. Thank you.
So that concludes our public comment. And we will now move on to,
Carrie, time on public comment.
we'll get back to yours in just a minute. Okay. Thank you very much. And as I stated earlier, we will be discussing this item. Right now, it's on the agenda for 3:50. It's entirely possible we will get to it sooner than that. So I wish I could give you a specific time, but several things have shifted over the day. So we're kind of working this out with some flexibility. Everything okay?
Yeah, she's back with some ice.
We had an accident.
Basically, good.
Oh,
it hurt.
But
Carry on.
I want to remind everybody again, we are being taped today for our late comments. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And at this time, I would like to withdraw at the speaker's request, item 4.1, ASG and Sustainability Committee pledge to reduce paper waste. They requested, and I agreed that we will postpone this until the spring. So that actually frees up 15 more minutes. Okay. And are there any other suggestions to the agenda at this time? Okay, having heard no other comments, I would like to entertain a motion to approve this agenda.
So
All right. Okay, moved by Dean and seconded by Lori. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. Okay, we have an agenda. Thank you. The next item are the minutes from the meeting of November 14th. The minutes are in your packet as well as a hyperlink provided online. Okay. Moved by Kim, seconded by Kathy to approve these minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions. I'm sorry, again, abstentions. Danielle and Chris are abstaining. All right, the next item is 2.0 consent calendar, and we have two items on the consent calendar. 2.1 is recommendations for the sabbatical leave committee. Item 2.2 are recommendations from our faculty recognition committee.
And I would request to remove item 2.2 from the consent.
Okay, it's been requested to move item 2.2 from consent. In the interest of time and because we have a speaker here, I would actually like to address this as soon as we approve the remainder of the consent calendar.
Move to approve item 2.1 is that the
Okay.
recommendation.
We have a motion.
second.
Moved by Kim, seconded by Dean to approve our sabbatical recommendations for the 2019-20 school year. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed and abstentions. All right. We noticed that we have Crystal Olivo at the table, who is on this list. I also want to tell you that there was one sabbatical proposal the committee had not finalized, so it's very probable that we'll be looking at one more come January. But we wanted to get these out so that faculty could plan and that department chairs could plan for their replacement. I also want to point out, and I'm jumping a little bit around the agenda right now, that if you check Anna Parmalee's really excellent report from the Faculty Association, you will see that there is actually a proposal on the table now to change the way that we do our sabbaticals. It's currently a dollar amount, and they want to change it to a percentage. So, no?
Sorry, I think that's misinterpreted.
Okay, straighten me out here.
Okay. I think they were asking, and it's not like this, we haven't agreed to this, the administration that had asked at one point to have the amount of sabbaticals offered be a percentage of the number of faculty.
Would that be a significant change?
I don't think so.
Okay. So sabbaticals are something that are in our contract.
Yes.
And one of those interesting shared things, they're in our contract, but we have a Senate committee who reads the proposals and makes the recommendation. So that's what we just approved. All right, the second item is 2.2, the faculty recognition, I can't talk today, recognition committee. Just very briefly, for the first time, the college is allowed to nominate both a full-time and an adjunct faculty member for the very prestigious Hayward Award. The recommendations coming forward at this time are Dr. Carrie Hutchinson from Communication Department and Roger Durling from Film and Media Studies. Both their CVs and the nomination letters are in your Senate folder. And at this time, I would like to recognize Dr. Carrie Hutchinson.
Good afternoon, members of the Academic Senate. I'm here to speak today about the Hayward Award, for which I was nominated by. Of course, everyone at SBCC worked incredibly hard, but I believe I was nominated specifically for my work as a racial justice activist in our community and on our campus, and for designing courses and programs that encourage students to develop into leaders for social justice. In doing this work, I constantly struggle to strike a balance between being visible enough to motivate and inspire people into action, and making sure that I'm not consuming the spotlight in place of a person of color who has worked to dismantle racism far longer, far harder, and at a much greater risk than I will ever know. In accepting the nomination for this award, I'm afraid that I've done that. I believe that the Hayward Award is an opportunity to recognize our best of color who have been brave enough this past week to illuminate the many ways in which they are consistently erased and diminished on our campus. And I regret missing my first chance at choosing disruption over complicity, when I should have declined the nomination and helped the person nominating me to find an equally worthy faculty member of color to nominate. I've now learned that if I decline at this stage, no full-time faculty person will be nominated this year, which means I lose the opportunity to serve as a role model for anti-racist leadership, and no person of color gets recognized. This is a lose-lose scenario for the anti-racism movement. In that case, I would like to use this opportunity to try and correct the course at this late stage by offering the Academic Senate and the Faculty Recognition Committee two specific recommendations to move forward based on well-established practices for disrupting race-based privilege and systemic inequity. First, I would like to recommend that the selection process for all faculty recognitions on our campus start to pay very special attention to the importance of seeking out faculty who are marginalized, particularly our faculty of color. This effort can start immediately with the next round of awards. However, anti-racist action involves so much more than giving awards to people of color. My second recommendation is that all members of the Academic Senate enroll in the next Crossroads anti-racism training offered on our campus, so that we can all develop a common framework for disrupting systemic inequity. We're planning to offer another round of the workshop as soon as possible, to which our president and EVP will be invited first and foremost. I will also make sure a seat is reserved for each and every member of the Academic Senate if you are interested. I want to close by thanking you for your service to our campus, which I appreciate so much, and for honoring me with the Hayward Award nomination. I also appreciate so much. I sincerely hope that my nomination serves as an opportunity for discussion about our shared responsibility in moving this institution forward. Thank you.
So at this time, we would entertain the motion, if the Senate so desires, to accept this nomination for the Hayward Award with the conditions that Carrie has put forward.
I'm not clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that actually?
I don't think we can actually take action on something that's not agendized, so I would suggest that if we want to do that, that we agendize those items that she discussed and take action. But we can't add things to this agenda item. So the consent for the nomination. So the nomination, we make a motion to approve the nomination without a doubt, but I don't know that we can do the second part of what you just said.
Well, my understanding is that for acceptance of this nomination is conditional. Am I correct, Carrie?
Those are my recommendations.
Well,
I would say, you can phrase it however you want, but the way that it's stated in my statement is that those are recommendations and I want to voice it.
I would actually think it'd be more powerful to have that be a second agenda item at a future meeting to actually highlight those recommendations and formally send them forward. I mean, I think that has more import.
There's no reason we couldn't do both. We could accept the recommendations and accept your recommendations and then agendize those for more formal acceptance.
Right. And if it's helpful to say that the conditions of my acceptance is those recommendations being honored, then I'm really happy to put it that way.
I do need to point out that the nominations for the Hayward Award are due to the State Academic Senate December 16th, and there's still some work to be done. So if we are going to move this forward, we do need to do so today.
But I don't think there's anything stopping us from accepting the nominations as they are, and then also considering her recommendations, and then more formally discussing those if we want to make it more of a legal obligation on the Senate. But I think that we're totally within our ability to go ahead and accept it, and also accept the recommendations. We don't have to necessarily do them until they're agenda. Is that okay, Karen?
Would anyone else like to comment on this action? We don't need a motion, it's a Senate recommendation. So we have to
approve it still.
I move to approve item 2.2 with the recommendation. With the recommendation, we will also discuss it.
All right, so the motion is to accept the nomination of Dr. Carrie Hutchinson for the.
Well, it's two.
Oh, and Roger Durham have been. Dr. Carrie Hutchinson as the full-time nominee for the Hayward Award with us to agenda on January 23rd, the recommendations that you made for moving ahead. Also, Roger Durling as our first adjunct together from Film and Media Studies to be forwarded to the State Academic Center on December 6th.
Oh, second. Oh, just Kevin, second. Yeah.
All right, all in favor for discussion?
Good choices.
Okay, all right. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you, Karen. All right, item 3, I'm loath to stand up at the computer and do what I usually do because I'm scared I'm going to shut the Zoom down. So normally I stand up and I do the teacher thing with a lot of screen time, but today I'm going to sit and walk through unless we absolutely need to, and I may need to in a minute. All right, we're now at item 3.0. It's now 3:10 and we're already over time. So I just want to point out that our CPC rep, Wire Schuyler, is going to be giving her CPC report during item 6.1. We also have Kathy O'Connor, who wanted to talk about things from the state academic plenary. Kim with Starfish, and I have a very, very short something I want to talk about. So shall we proceed ahead with those?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're very short of time, so
I'll be quick.
Okay. Kathy, would you go first?
I just really want to point out to go into the liaison report. There's two major changes to online distance education language in Title V. One requires contact among students, not just between faculty and students, and one actually specifies accessibility standards must be followed in all online classes. We met earlier today. We're working on new agenda. We're working on some new guidelines for us. I'm on DTAC as with Kenley. We're working on statewide guidelines. But as I'm looking at courses coming through curriculum for 5-year review, we have to review the DE. Again, it can't just be assumed. So I just wanted to let you all know that as you bring courses forward, that we do need to do that new review on DE because of those two regulation changes. Also, I've included in the website the non-credit DE calculations, which are very complex. We had another meeting today also on how to account for that, how to make sure we're getting the appropriate wish. So anybody that wants to do non-credit DE, if you'll talk to me, that would be great. That's it.
Okay. And also, Kathy provided much greater detail in her liaison report, which is item 7.0. It's linked to the agenda, and you can read that in more detail. Right. At this time, we're going to talk about Starfish.
Yeah, no, we're not going to, there's a handout on the agenda. I'd rather leave more time for the future discussion items. So people can see the handout. There's a new automated flag for online classes, and then we'll come back to the Senate in the spring after pilot and more full.
Again, just to show you guys, this is where the link is to the Starfish report.
And it's also, I have a print copy in here.
Yeah, we printed out a hard copy for you as well. My report, I'll jump ahead here, and you can read all of it, but the first item that I reported on was the board meeting, which is also the item of focus of 6.1. So, I will actually go ahead and just give this very briefly, because there's something here that I need to say, and then we can take it up again during 6.1. And I tried as best I could to describe what happened at that board meeting. The 3 items I pulled specifically from the letter for the Coalition for Justice, so they're listed there. This typo here. And then something after the meeting. There was a 1-hour public session. I'm sure many of you have watched this meeting by now. But I just want to follow up on something. After the meeting, which lasted about an hour of public comment, the board went into closed session. They came out and they reported some action. I was not there. I had since requested that the college provide us a report of that report out. I was informed yesterday that that is now being considered confidential and it will not be provided. So I am going to be pursuing this so that we can find out. Once the board reports an action out, that is ceased to be, that's now public. But I need to follow up.
There's video recording.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know.
Private video of them.
And didn't make it, well, we can talk about it later, but it wasn't real helpful what was said.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah, it was totally not helpful, but
Yeah.
it's on the video.
Okay. But yes, I can't get anything on the record about that. So anyway, the rest of my report, you can read on your own, and we will move on. Dr. Boston, you are next on our agenda.
Okay, my report is very businessy and apparently quite essential. We have to talk about grade deadlines, and then I'd like to reserve the remainder of my report during 6.1 to speak to the larger issue. So there's a link here on our agenda, but I need to remind you that it is critically important that Wednesday, December 19th, we have the grade submission deadline. Due to Christmas falling on a Tuesday and the college being closed on the Monday prior, admissions and records has no extra days in which to process late grades and allow students the mandatory 10 days required to appeal probationary status. All grades must be submitted by the deadline of December 19 in order to meet this requirement. And all faculty email will be sent as a reminder, and deans will contact relevant faculty directly in advance of this step. So if you feel like you want to share with your folks back in your departments, you can cut and paste out of this link. I'll be sending a letter. We'll be doing lots and lots of communication on this.
It's so hard to communicate information. By they're saying December 19th, I don't think everybody knows that the Cornelia deadline is like 5 a.m. or something. It was like 7 a.m.
Oh,
7 a.m.
In fact, I stand corrected. It is, I dropped it out.
Yeah,
It
you
is
wanna,
the
like,
Cornelia
repeat that.
deadline.
You want to repeat it in a paragraph.
But just for
Yeah.
clarity, that's no change. That's how we've always been.
It was midnight. And
For the last
I-
year.
and then-
For the last couple of years, yeah, last couple of years.
Who's checking how it plays on midnight? And the date is 7 a.m.
The timeline of this hasn't shifted. It's the emphasis of which day it is during this week because of the holiday layout. And so I'm sure that all of us here are really great about getting our things on time, and everyone you know also is. But this is one of those that can hold up the entire batch of grades rolling, and so we just need to be extra attentive. My second item is, I will just say very quickly, we are working to find interested faculty who would like to serve on the accreditation steering group. I have more detail inside the report, and I will be working with Patricia to do work to help bring the faculty portion of that team together. If you are interested in accreditation work, this is a great.
Boy, that's a
Let me start it over. If you are thrilled about accreditation work, this is your great opportunity. I will have linked the standards for you to take a look at. They've been revised since the last time the SBCC went through this work. It is a kinder, gentler, more peer-directed review process than it has been in the last 15 years in California, and it will be quite beneficial to us if you're able to participate. So, thank you.
And apparently I am the person to whom this is going to flow. So as soon as Pamela and I can get this sorted out, I'll put out a request for interest. And we'll try to get back to you on this final steering. right, so we have postponed this item, and then the next are information items that you guys can read earlier on. These were actually on the last agenda, we just went very short on. They don't need approval, they're just there for your information. Next, we have a very, very long list of board policies and administrative procedures. They actually come from 3 separate meetings. 2 weeks ago, I tried to explain, I hope clearly, the way that this process works. Every year, we have a board policies and administrative committee that's made up of all the different constituency groups, and we take one section of all of our board policies and we completely look at it. This is a routine annual review. They come to DPAP, that's the name of this committee, your faculty representatives who are Dean, myself, and Kim. We take a look at them. We try to look at anything that might be a red flag, anything that's really to be of interest or impact to faculty. But we bring them to you for information so that we can have other eyes looking at these in order to catch this. Our area specifically is academic affairs, but people in that programs will be able to flag things to student support. At any time, even if we've had, and once we read these are out for information only. They will be returned to the superintendent president, or they may already have been updated and published on the website, but we can pull them back at any time if we want to take a look at it. So this is actually a fairly fluid process. So unless they're here, you've had some of them for over 3 weeks now. So are there any that you want specific information on, or can we just move ahead? I do want to address one of them first, and that is Board Policy 4030 on academic freedom. If you'll remember, the Senate in September asked our Academic Policies Committee to develop an administrative procedure on academic freedom. We had a board policy, but we had no administrative procedure. So our committee worked on it all semester, and when they were pretty close to a final draft, we learned that the State Academic Senate is revising its statement on academic freedom, and they will be doing that in the spring. The committee decided to just hold off until they see what work the State Academic Senate has done before bringing forward the local procedure. So that's off the table for now. Are there any other questions or discussion about any of these? There are a lot of them. Okay, then we will move on, and I think we're ready for item 6.1. So let me attempt to try to frame this in some way. We had long planned on those members of the Academic Senate who were attending the Crossroads training to come and report to the Senate. We know the training's not completed, but we thought that it was so important that we have a report on what has happened and what will happen. So that was previously on the agenda. And then the events of, I'll get the date straight here, from the Gender Equity Work Group and the follow-up board meeting occurred, and we decided to pull these together as one agenda item. So what we have before us, folks, is 3 specific discussion items. One is Crossroads training, and Dwyer, you and the other faculty members will lead the discussion on that. Also, the day after that board meeting, the CPC faculty met. College Planning Council is one of the highest shared governance groups on campus. It's made up from people with all the different groups, faculty, administration, classified, and we met the day after, and the topic came up. I will let Dwyer report on that more thoroughly. And then, basically, I just tried to summarize what happened at that board meeting to put it before the Senate today. I want to stress that this is a discussion item. Okay? And procedurally, the way that the Senate works is that senators are compelled, because this is a representative body, they are compelled to talk to their division to bring those types of decisions back to the board. So typically we do not do action items unless we have the agenda on the agenda and they're clearly spelled out. Back to the board. I'm sorry, back to the Senate. So what we have before us is discussion. the steering committee listed at least 3 areas to try to frame it. But I acknowledge our speakers at the beginning of the meeting, and I think this can be, and I hope it's going to be a frank and thorough discussion by the board. Once we do start the discussion.
Sit in.
What am I doing here? Once we get started, I'd like for us to use our usual procedure. I'm going to be keeping track, and I would like to try to let everybody speak before people start speaking again. I think it's really important on this topic that everyone feel comfortable that their voices are heard during this time. Why? Are you comfortable just clicking away and doing what you do up here?
And there were 7 of us from Academic Senate who participated in the Crossroads training first workshop. Lori, myself, Jordy, Eileen, Melissa, Kim, and Danielle. And I wanted to just begin by thanking Elizabeth Imhoff, the faculty director of the SRC, for coordinating this, and Josh Ramirez for his leadership over the new Title V grant, which funded this professional development opportunity. We had over 40 people attend the Crossroads training, faculty, staff, administrators participate. So the Crossroads Anti-Racism Organizing and Training is an external group that came to us through facilitators, and here's their mission: to dismantle systemic racism and build anti-racist multicultural diversity with institutions and communities. I wanted to give you all the website because they have some amazing resources out there. I also wanted to highlight on their homepage a statement that I think characterizes that training, and it will help us all at this institution, that racism dehumanizes us all, dismantling racism heals us all. So recognizing that racism goes beyond personal prejudice, Crossroads offers a distinctive power analysis of how racism functions in institutions and offers tools to create anti-racist transformation. So the Crossroads training that we're going through is a series of workshops, and we have just participated in the first session of that. It was a 2.5-day training, and here were the objectives of that workshop in particular. I have a handout that outlines there will be 2 more workshops as part of this training for those in attendance, and we can have this. So we all got together November 9th, 10th, and 11th to go through the training, and then we'll be back together actually this Friday for a reconnection of this group of people on campus. Then we will also come with facilitators from Crossroads back together in January and in February. And I'm going to turn it over to other participants who came to that training to talk a little bit about specifically what we did in this first workshop session.
So I'm doing a quick summary on day 1 of the training. The first agreement with everyone in the room, including the trainers, was to make sure we were all on the same page in terms of what we were about to embark on, which is basically creating an environment that encompassed all of these elements that are fully here. So mutual respect for one another, taking responsibility, listening for understanding, make room for diverse voices in the room. Our own experience inform us in many ways throughout our lives, but also listening to other people's experiences is the deep listening that sometimes we don't partake in on a daily basis because we're so engrossed in so many other activities on campus. Also embracing things that just aren't clear, so ambiguity. And then preserving the integrity of the stories that are being told to us as a group and also individually in our breakup. one of the activities at the very beginning was understanding our wall of history. So in the room, there were 3 walls that were covered with butcher paper. And the trainers divided up the top section of the butcher paper with the bottom section, and the top represented our wall of racism throughout history. And looking at structural racism in America and considering both the nature and consequences of the structure and the opportunity for disruption. So we looked and reacted to key events during the struggle, examined and reflected on our own experiences and perspectives. And again, we did this through small group activities, reporting out to the larger group, and each time taking the opportunity for more inner work reflection throughout the group.
So I'm covering day 2. So we did, on that particular day, we talked about power analysis. And so we read and kind of dissected and analyzed this particular passage, which is why I made that be the slide, from Gloria Anzaldua's Borderlands La Frontera. And so having a group read this text was a pretty profound moment for me, being that this is one of the prominent scholars that pushed me in my thinking, but a lot of folks in the room had never heard of this piece. So I think that was part of the dynamic as well, that whiteness has defined the U.S. dominant culture. And so this particular passage is what Anzaldúa is getting at in terms of the borderlands, so that we could deconstruct the us and them binary and start to understand that binary. So that was what the whole day centered around in different ways and different activities to start to decenter the power structure. And so we spent time defining what whiteness is and what whiteness looks like at SBCC. And so I think that was a pretty powerful moment.
So this is my effort to distill from day 3. So this first workshop is kind of giving intellectual framework, and a lot of people there, especially people of color participating, already know this, and a lot of the white people, some stuff is newer, so kind of like it's still important as we do it together and hear what has been overlooked. So it's a really powerful moment, I know, especially for me, having heard some of these things intellectually, but then to really hear them in a new and deeper way and see how prevalent they still are here today. So the intellectual part does still connect to the heart and how we are in the world. So this is an effort again to distill this socialization about reinforcing prejudices and messages in our society, but it's really important to see what's backed up by power as opposed to, so when you think about structural racism, they like to come to the power behind those prejudices. The institution that gives form to these values and norms that undergird our society, and again, so many citizens already know that, but when the white majority do not really, having to think about that and learn that, it is difficult for most white people to see these systems and expressions. They just don't see them. And one of the workshop leaders gave this metaphor for it. That racism today is like riding on a moving walkway through the airport. Doing nothing allows racism to prosper. The machine takes us in the direction it's set up to take us on. And it's just there. And doing nothing, you're part of that. So this is our challenge to identify and disrupt these systems. And of course, that's part of what's going on in this meeting. And it's difficult and challenging. And I want to thank everybody here who came to speak and is trying to do this now. And it's hard, but we're trying to do this work.
So again, this is going to be where we move to in January. So we're going to build along the ideas from the first section and just go deeper into internalized racism for both white people and people of color, and start to work on basic skills to host and facilitate practice groups here at the college. And moving on into February, we will start looking at strategies to really conduct an audit of SBCC and how do we need to move forward to help the college
claim and live in an anti-racist identity. In general, for me, the message that I would want to convey from my involvement at Crossroads is that Crossroads training is helping educate participants on how structural racism and white supremacy is embedded in our history, in our society, and all of our institutions and SBCC. In particular, I see this training especially beneficial for white people because it helps us learn how we have benefited from and are complicit with the system, and it's helping us learn that it is our job not to be silent, but to acknowledge and recognize this, and then to do anti-racism work with us. So, any other comments from the participants?
Elizabeth here. I just want to thank Elizabeth for doing this work and bringing the group here on campus. I think I've done a lot. Really great trainings that Elizabeth has sponsored, but I think this is probably one of the best trainings and workshops that I've ever participated in. So I want to just acknowledge your work.
Are there other members of the LEARN committee here? Please stand up, because I think it was actually the LEARN committee that brought them.
A year-long process of meeting and interviewing and deciding and bringing in participation. This was a one-sided process. And so many considerations of right. That was absolutely.
Thank you. So again, Dwyer is going to give us our report on the CPC meeting from last week.
Okay, we'll do that one next. So I linked to the CPC materials. This was one day after the special board meeting, so this was November 20th. Some of us at the table had not been at that board meeting. There was a presentation held by Patty Robinson from College of the Canyons on deliberative dialogue. It's a method about talking about challenging issues. We sat through that presentation and that took up basically the whole meeting. And afterwards ensued a conversation. A number of people, CPC faculty and staff who were there, felt a little bit of a disconnect because the president said, "What do you think? Shall we pursue this?" But we needed to take a step back and say, wait, we need to discuss what happened at the special board meeting, not jump right to a method of dialoguing, because there's content there that we need to address. So we asked for an extension of the meeting. That we did go another 15 minutes to allow a little bit more discussion, but it was not adequate. We asked for an emergency meeting of CPC, and we left the room hoping that that would happen, but we did learn later in the week that due to scheduling conflicts, we would not have an emergency CPC meeting. So that was the CPC meeting from November 20th. Is there anything else?
No, we are set to talk. We are set to meet next Tuesday, and Dwyer this morning put forth an agenda item where we bring this back and try to determine the role of CPC and any steps that we need to take. We want this to be part of the CPC work. And I think we've got the support of the staff. Okay, Pamela, would you like to give your portion of this topic now?
Yes. So I'm going to speak very informally about my own position of having not been here for getting to see the board presentation of the special board meeting in person. I was very happy that it was recorded and I was able to watch it several times. And so I've been sitting with that. I'm also
worked for myself and worked with others on the non-reacting components, so listening and trying to move in and hear pieces of it. It's a struggle around that sense of urgency and responsiveness. And I think sometimes when we move too quickly at a leadership level, we erase the spaces for listening. And so we've been trying to be mindful of balancing out those needs for recognition and hearing and action. And so we've been working toward that. The President and Counsel has met many hours this week to think through and respond internally in our group and be able to work with one another in response to the coalition's work and the efforts of the Black Faculty Staff Association, BSU. I mean, that's the next name of the coalition, Coalition for Social Justice and Brothers. And one more. And the other very important coalition that has been doing really active and important work, which has another name that'll come through in a minute. We're in support of that effort and that work, and we are really mindful for the concerns that as we're learning, listening, we want to make sure that we're not helping move forward with a set of agendas that haven't been developed with the people who need to be at the center of that conversation. And so we are working on that on behalf of the college, and we're looking with the president. And so I don't want to take up more time on that, but thank you very much. And the work that is happening is meaningful and significant. And a sense of disruption and discomfort is an important space that I would like to help us recognize.
So Pamela, can you give us any more information about any specific things you guys have worked on so far?
So I'm hesitant to do that, in part because what we thought we might do is kind of think through some of the problems that got raised that were specific items at the Board of Trustees meetings that were the stories and the narratives that we were hearing and being able to kind of understand those in context. But because we're thinking of what we think we might want to be able to do with it, I think has to be shared back with people who have these concerns. So the story that Ibrahim told about his experience at the LRC, the story that Maya told about her experience at the library, the other stories that we heard about the athlete from 2 years ago who experienced a sitting experience. What we've done is kind of open up the doors to figure out where those gaps occurred, what happened with reporting, how people were heard or not heard, and we're trying to figure out the spaces around those experiences. And start developing some ways to respond effectively to that. I think item 3 on the coalition's request talk about a body that can help process that. That seems to be a clear statement about how to make a component that's structural work that we need support and help that can be part of a reporting mechanism that might be able to help catch gap spaces in processes that we have and approaches and training that we use frontline staff. So we've been thinking about some of what that would look like, but I think that work is really preliminary at a level of learning about at this moment and kind of walking through those things. So we have several ideas that we're starting to think about. I think other people have several ideas that they can think about, and I think as we go through this next smaller period of time, we need to find ways to come together and probably a facilitated conversation to be able to think about how we respond to those needs and build them in a way that will serve the most vulnerable students at the center and working that way out. So I don't want to make it seem like it's a fully realized plan yet because I think it's only the very beginning thinking.
All right, so that's actually all the formal things that we have planned. I think now we can open this up for Senate discussion at that point. And I would like to have you guys raise your hands. I'm sorry?
Now we have the floor.
Right, no, I know. We're also being very mindful that our final item on the agenda is also very high impact, so we want to make sure we have time to get to that. Let's use our usual process of raising your hands, and I will go ahead and call on you. And first, it is Ruth.
I really think that we as an institution, especially our administration and our board, needs to take an approach of authentic engagement, as it said in Carrie's summary of what's come out of previous issues out of other universities. And to be perfectly honest, right now, Dr. Beebe is going down a list. That's what he's doing. He's going down a list and checking people off and saying, did I meet with you? He offered me 15 minutes, and I said, you can keep your 15 minutes. 15 minutes is not going to solve anything. And what I'm hearing is that he's sitting there and just sitting and having people repeat what's already been said to him. Dr. Beebe needs to start speaking up. Right? He needs to start coming up with solutions, right, and approaches. And to be perfectly honest, he needs to be the first one at his anti-racism stuff. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon in terms of the training. It needs to happen very soon. He needs to do this, as does the board. And it really needs, and I think it's important, I said this in my board statement, it's important, it needs to be authentic, and I know he's going to listen to this, and as is everyone else, it needs to be authentic. It cannot simply be, hey, who else can we get in here? What report do we produce? Reports aren't going to be enough. That's not it. He has the ability, and we do, because we can hopefully influence that, the ability to sit down and listen, and not just listen to check us off the box, but listen for again, to lead to some degree of healing. And that's what needs to happen. I really think that this can actually, in the end, turn into a beautiful outcome. It can. It has the potential to be a breakthrough for this institution where we culturally have a shift. It's an enormous shift that this is required, an enormous shift. It's so huge that we almost can't notice it. It's like an iceberg. It's subtle, but enormous at the same time. And I really think that we need the leadership there, and I do not believe that it is there.
I just want to reiterate what we've said, and given what happened to me last spring, I just see the same pattern. No public acknowledgement of what's going on, no statement, no actual work, no acceptance of responsibility and hurt and harm, trying to keep it quiet. The problem for Dr. Beebe is that it's bad publicity for the college and not that people are harmed. And those are two different problems. And until he recognizes that there's harm that's created and caused and that we suffer from, especially people of color on this campus, nothing's going to happen. And I'm with Ruth that, what is it, the fish rots from the head, and he got a 15% raise, he makes well over $300,000 a year and is not addressing the needs on this campus. I don't think he knows faculty. I don't think he knows who we are. He doesn't know our names, and there's no trust there. And until he does that work to build relationships with people on this campus, we can do the work, but it does need leadership, and I don't see him actually wanting to do the work. He gave me 15 minutes in the summer to try to make me feel better about what happened, and that's not helpful. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't help.
Cornelia? So I just want to make sure I'm speaking here as Cornelia, and I actually wrote down what I wanted to say because it's all not very easy for me to understand, and I'm trying to do my best. So I would like to point out that I personally learned a lot in the last 2 weeks. I admit that I have been lacking awareness of racial issues and incidents, and I know that there's so much more to learn for me probably more than for anyone else here in the room, because I did not even grow up in this country. And I attended the board meeting on Monday, and I was very saddened by the statements and stories of the students and staff who spoke there. And what's clear to me is that we do need to change, and that we do need help in doing so. I really admit that as a white woman, there is no way I truly can appreciate the pain and the hurt and the disrespect that people of color have to suffer in their daily lives, starting from their early childhood. So I do fully support
the request for anti-racism training. I fully support getting outside help in how to better respond to harassment claims. This is truly needed for all of us, and it needs to start with the board, with the administration, and all of us here in the room and the college community. But I am opposed to demanding Lindsay Mass resignation. So please let me explain why. The first reason is due process. In my job as the FA president, one of my main tasks is to fight for and uphold the right to due process for every faculty member on this campus. And actually, this right to due process is something every employee on our campus should have. This applies to a vice president as well. In addition to this, wouldn't it be much better to give Lindsay a chance to attempt rectifying the situation by learning, by changing, and by becoming someone who builds bridges and actively fights racism, because she has experienced how hurtful her actions were to so many people. I'm convinced that Lindsay would be willing to do exactly that. On the other hand, who are we as an institution if Lindsay is gone? If we call for the immediate termination of an employee instead of giving her the chance to make amends and learn from her terrible mistakes, how would this make us a better college? How does this fit into our mission as an educational institution? How does this help us grow together? How would this encourage us to openly share our thoughts and experiences and to identify and rectify racist incidents? So please, let's focus on what we can do. Let's have training, let's learn, let's make us better and more aware people, and a better and more racially sensitive institution, and a better and safer place for everyone. Thank you. Yeah.
I agree with everything that you have said so far. I don't know the specifics of handling what's happened with Lindsay because it's complicated, and I haven't been in a lot of the conversations that make people here request for the resignation, but I too think it's important to try to learn and grow at an institution. The issue I wanted to add to the discussion, and I've been feeling this since spring, and Danielle mentioned that some of what's happening now is a kind of recurrence. So I think we've had enough evidence now that our administration really can't do this on its own. And so since spring, I know I have been asking others agreed you need to hire some kind of outside expert to work to allow this conversation, and then of course the action that you do as you listen and what needs to change. So I don't know if and when Senate would try to make some kind of recommendation. CPC faculty will be going next week. If other people feel we want to say, administration, we've had problems for months, there's new groups forming to try to make things better. But I really feel like that our family is hurting and injured, and I don't feel I know so many people are trying. I know again there's been so much activist work and planning that I don't know about, but I don't feel like we can all do it ourselves. So I would like us to, if people think that we also need some kind of outside help, and that could be chosen by the activists here. But I'm just concerned what could change without something like that. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Dolores, and I don't have a comment. I have a question. What immediate support is being given to Black students and our Black colleagues? That may not be a question for Patricia. It might be a question for
I can answer
Pamela.
I'm sorry, I can't.
that. Am I allowed to speak or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi guys. I want to first echo what Pamela said. It's important to degree that I feel great. I think that would be awesome. In regards to what kind of support, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Black faculty staff right now because I've been trying to keep everyone looped in and engaged, and as well as to provide some support. I can tell you the first thing is it's really disheartening when you know that the email that Dr. Beebe sent campus-wide, I went to everyone's inbox as well as to the students, and your colleagues know that they've read the email, but they walk past you and they don't say anything. So I know I can speak for me only right now, and I know if I say to one of my colleague or my coworker, and I care about them, and I know something derogatory was dropped about them, it is my right that they have on me that I actually speak to them, to check in with them. Right? We cannot go on and walk past people that we know that they're hurt. I mean, there's only the percentage of Black employees on campus, so it's dismal to say the least. And people walk by you and don't say anything. So then I base the question, are you really a colleague? That begs the question, are you really a friend? Yes, maybe you don't know how to approach that person. And that's okay, but don't not approach a person. Check in. And that's the start, right? That's the beginning of it. As a Black person on campus, yes, we're few in numbers. But we need to hear people that, hey, listen, are you okay? I got a few check-ins for some people, and that means a lot. So if you see someone that you know that works here, just check in with them. Just say, hey, how's it going? How you doing? I know there's a lot going on. I'm here for you. And so that's, I guess that's the first part to answer your question as to what's been done, right? So I haven't heard a whole lot of anything that's been done to a room that has been addressed. But so yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Russell, Counsel.
No, go on. Okay. So there's another issue that, on behalf of the Black faculty and staff, that is been problematic, and I have to address this. And we all saw what transpired and what happened at the board meeting. I was pretty adamant when I communicated with you with regards to how he tried to suppress the situation. And then we all know that he sent out the campus-wide email to everyone's inbox as well as to the students. We all know that he attached Lindy's email with his. It's extremely problematic because the marginalized people have no voice. The people that actually hurt the most. And I can tell you, I've been losing sleep, and I know other people have been losing sleep. I know other people haven't been eating well. I know people have been affected. So I stand here today and let you know that is extremely problematic. That he didn't even take that advice. Because that shows that the college, which should have been remained neutral, that people, it should have remained neutral. It's here. Here's my email. And here, let me attach Nikki's email. Because here's her explanation. And we won't even begin to talk if that is accurate or not. So I know there's people in this room that were actually there, and they would actually disagree with that. And I know that's been communicated with you. So again, this is problematic in so many ways. And we cannot continue to go back to how we used to conduct business. And we're better than this. You know, we are. But I'm an optimist. And I spoke with you, and he tried to hit me off on the past, come meet me in my office by myself. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Come talk to your Black faculty and staff. Right? And then again, that was problematic too, because there was only 3 or 4 of us, and the word got out kind of late. So, but again, and I told him, and I posed the same question to all of us. I said, what is it that you love? I asked him first if he had kids. He said, no. I said, what is it that you love? He said, I said, well, look, you love to sail, right? You swim out the North Point, right? And so I said, what's it what? Wait, sorry, don't try. I really do. But my point in this is, if you claim to love something, if you claim to love that, you sail. Well, guess what? You cannot claim that you love sail when the waters are smooth. You have to love to sail when the waters are choppy. And we're in choppy water right now. The black voice on campus is marginalized. Is there any black people at this table? No. Was there any black people at the gender equity table? No. So look, we have to think about the people that are marginalized the most on campus. Where are they at? So we can get together and talk about solution, but can we really talk about solution if they're not present? I mean, it's crazy to me that this is where we're at. And it's also crazy to me when people start talking about the context. Is this real? Is this how we really evolve back? Did we revert to the context of the word now? Is this where we're at? I mean, we really have to question ourselves. I mean, it's problematic when people say, "Well, what's the context you use?" That doesn't matter. The context doesn't matter. And I hear what you were saying in regards to, offering support to Lindsay and what kind of institution will we begin show forgiveness. And I'm going to address that because I think that's super important. Because, in all due respect, I told this to Dr. B. Biswell, said the reason why it's so problematic is her position. Listen, she's not in her cubicle pushing papers. No disrespect. I push papers and I love it. Don't get that confused. That's not a slight on him. But the reason why it's so problematic is she's in a position of power. So if you're at that level, you should have the bandwidth already to understand the situation. I'm not saying we can't have forgiveness because I've forgiven her. But that doesn't mean that we can just continue to go on about our daily business and not help other people accountable to the missions of the college. And so that's the reason why Black faculty and staff said, no, we're calling for a resignation. Because her bandwidth should have been, or her moral compass should have been on tight to begin with. This is someone who is probably trying to figure themselves out. This is not someone that's being in a leadership position. They should not have this issue. So that's the reason why we call. And so does go to the top, so does go to the rest of the institution. And one last thing, and I'll be finished. I told the same thing to Dr. B. I said, listen, the way that my grandma, she's from the South. She's since passed, and I love her. I was really close with her. And she used to tell me, and I didn't understand it, but she used to say, listen, she had a country accent, so it didn't sound like it. If it doesn't come out in the wash, it will come out in the rinse. And I never understood that. But now I start to understand, I said, listen, if we don't get this right, it's going to keep happening over and over. Don't we have a Durantes lecture? What was that for? So again, here we are, everyone in this room, everyone's meant to be here. I'm a believer that everyone is where they're supposed to be. So we have to get it right. And yes, it may require some hard work, and maybe I don't know, I'm running out of words. I just want to say, that's it. We have to get it right. And doing the work of having people come in and do the training, listen, honestly, I feel that we're beyond that point. We're actually beyond that point, right? So that's just my personal tip. We're beyond the point of bringing someone in, having them sit down and talk about race. We're beyond that point. We're all intellects here in this room. That's why we're here. We're beyond that point. That's honestly what I believe. So,
thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's
so much time.
Thank you.
Say hello when you see me on
I am compelled to a time check because we have the item on the agenda. It's 4:24, and I have two speakers, Russell and then Melissa. And then.
Okay, just need to grab that. So I came from another institution, and in the 2.5 years that I've been here, we've done institutionally and in service where someone's spoken about one's inherent bias, and by the time we're done, yes, we don't have it. Institutional racism, and yes, it's there, we don't have it. But then we were kind of left. All right, it's there, it exists, we've got it. Be on the lookout for it. But there didn't seem to be any work into, okay, how do I cope with this? Especially end of a long day, it's at the end of a long week, and, my defenses or that special care or my bandwidth now is at its lowest. We had to deal with exactly this problem at the last institution that I was at. And what the administration decided to do there was, I thought, pretty hard, difficult, very expensive. It sounds very similar to this Crossroads workshop. I was called Just Communities for us. And what we would literally do is lose a significant percentage of our staff for a week. Subs would come in and we would do a week-long, no holds barred, tears everywhere. It seemed like daily, if not every minute, I didn't know kind of thing. But when we were done, it took about 2.5 years to cycle everyone through, and there were some people who escaped. But the majority then now had a different mindset and a different attitude. And I watched our institution change and how we treated others and our students change. And that was significant. So for what it's worth.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to kind of respond to some of the comments that have been made. One, I know a lot of us are kind of upset with the leadership and President Beebe and his responses, but there's also kind of a level of simplicity here that has kind of disturbed me. And the email thread that was circling around faculty, there were 2 threads, and it was very clear that people still want listening. And I think that's why I want to respond specifically to you, Cornelia, and when you said you cannot support the resignation request. And I think that that's ignoring, yet again, the victim. And I think that it's very important that if you want to see yourself as a true ally, that you stand in solidarity with the victim, you believe the story, you listen to the story, and you have to deal with that consequence. And another concern I have is that the Black students, are being erased here. All the conversation became about Lindsay. How is she feeling? What did she mean? How did she mean it in this way? And the conversation quickly went away from the fact that that word was even used, but more importantly, it was used as a hate speech on our campus. And nothing has been done, and it's been 5 weeks since this incident was reported, and nothing has been done. And that is appalling. And I think another thing I wanted to the original? Another comment I have is this is exactly the type of privilege that silences and suppresses these incidences and perpetuates institutional racism, where the victim remains victimized. Akil was saying, nobody speaks, nobody, kind of ignores it. It's been 2 weeks, very hard 2 weeks for some of us. Just because of personal traumas, they pop up. And not once has there been people checking in. And the support that people are seeing is Lindsay. Lindsay's getting that support. And that's a slap in the face to so many people. And so therefore, when I see people and they are saying, oh, I can't support the resignation, it's a slap in my face. So I just want that to be said. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm aware of the time, and I'm aware of my involvement on CPC. And maybe it's kind of trying to figure out that balance between listening and action that you're talking about. But I'd like to talk about what's the role of Senate to help bring about the next step that
will start us down the right path. Now, not that Senate knows what that is. Is it Senate? Can Senate work with the Black Faculty and Staff Association and the Black Student Union and the SBCC Coalition for Justice and the SBC Student Coalition for Justice to help come up with solutions that those groups deem appropriate? I don't see that happening with President Beebe. Maybe it's because of timing, maybe he's moving in that direction, but is it the role of Senate to help in that process?
Well, you know, something that I keep coming back to. So I'm a woman of color, and my job here on this campus is to speak from discrimination on a daily basis. I work with students with disabilities. There isn't a day that goes by where I'm not addressing discrimination at some level, hitting our students from everybody that works here, everybody that works here. So now I'm in a leadership position. Why? Because I stepped up, because I wanted a voice. But I don't represent myself. I represent educational support students. So what kind of bothers me in this scenario is that, you know, when you think you're doing the right thing, you're still not hearing all the voices. So when you are, I think the first thing that comes to mind, Lindsay was called out, meaning it was a name associated with an action. But then when we're talking about students or we're talking about Black faculty or staff, I'm not hearing the names of the Black faculty or staff or the students. Because if I knew the names, I would reach out. I would try to find that line of communication, of direction, of support. But I'm going blind in this conversation on several levels because that's not out there for me to respond to at that level. And so, you know, I don't think that people who look like me or who are biracial or who belong to any particular ethnic group can ever have enough training. Because as I said before, it's our own personal life experience that has brought us to this point in time. But when I look around just with our senators alone, look at this, there are some faces around here that look different from one another. I know there are experiences around the table that are different from one another. And that's work within our own body, which is a governance body that we can work on. I like the idea of being able to reach out to our faculty who feel that they need additional support and have us work at that level with them. I like the idea of having Senate go through the rest of the senators hooking into the Crossroads training. That's a huge support within our institution. And then those of us who are on the leadership committees, not only as senators, myself as a vice president, but also working within the CPC structure. We've had some of those conversations, quite a few conversations, but we're only as good as the conversations that we have. We know well and good there are pockets of communication that happen on this campus that many of us don't hear, but yet when you sit at a table like this, you're hearing only that pocket of communication because of the proximity of where those communications are, just because of proximity. So if we really want to be honest with ourselves, let's bring those communications out, put them on the table, and then work together to try to find some balance to make it a healthier institution. I have been here over 25 years, and I've seen a lot. This is my sixth president. I've worked under many, many, many deans. I know how long it takes a dean to work with a department. I know how long it takes the president to work with an institution. I spent the last 5 years or more working at the state level. I know how difficult it is to work at the state level to enact change. I'm doing that now after 17 years, finally getting an accessibility standard for 114 community colleges. That is not sleeping at the wheel. but I know what work it takes. So I'm asking all of you in the room, whether you're senators, whether you're sitting on the side, let's just be honest with ourselves and try to move forward in a way that makes for a healthier institution. I'm all in, I'm willing to do the work. I know a lot of my colleagues are willing to do the work, that we have to do it together.
It's now 4:35.
Well, I want to say, you know, I think it was really who I am as a teacher and as a school learning. I sit on President's cabinet, and I am in support of the request of the coalition to select student unions, and I've expressed that to President Reed, all three requests, asking for the recognition. I don't want to speak on behalf of my other colleagues.
Mike and Ruth, and then I think you'll have to conclude this and move on to,
Where going with the COVID, and we have expressed our support for our Black faculty and staff and Pamela's organization. We've expressed our support for their specific demands to the president.
Then I was being loosely oblique when I reported out earlier. I'd like to take some comments for me to be clear.
Mike?
I'll just share my thoughts as I read all these emails over Thanksgiving and watched that video. One, I was very shocked at all the sad incidents of racism that the people shared at that board meeting. And hearing what's going on here, I think we as a Senate, we as a college are going down a direction to address that. I know we're not there, but that was my first observation. My second observation, though, was more along the lines of Cornelia here. And I think, O'Keefe, still here? I must respectfully disagree. The context of how a word is used is crucial. And so Lindsay Moss did not use this with hate. And I don't see her being terminated, losing her job because of it being the appropriate response. It just wasn't used in a mean way. Now, Melissa, you said differently, and it's fine. I think we can respect the different opinions, but it was not hateful. And so like Cornelia here, I just don't see the call for her resignation as being the way to go. What I did see in number 3 here is that it seemed like a lot of people calling for her to resign had passed an additional issue. It wasn't just this one issue. There was sounds like a lot of emotional scars. And I say that with maybe a new light. This is only my second time on the Senate. I wasn't here last spring, or at least second time this go around in the last 20 years. But being back here and not being part of the highly emotional charges of last spring and the other things that I think are leading to, beyond just Lindsay Moss resigning, but talking about the administration. These are good things to say, but narrowing it back to Lindsay Moss, again, it wasn't hate speech, and I don't mean this in the thing that slaps anyone's face. I don't mean to erase anybody's voices here. It just, that's really how I see it. And as far as I know, she's always done great work, and so I applaud all these discussions about these programs. I think that's a great way to go, but calling for a resignation is just not in the cards for me.
At this time, it's 4:40. If we are going to entertain more discussion from the Senate, we also had 2 people in the audience who indicated they want to speak. We would need to extend this meeting by 15 minutes, and we would have to adjourn at 5:15. I need to have a vote on that, if somebody would like to make a motion to do so.
I move that we extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Opposed and abstentions. Okay, what we will do is, I have Annette and Ellen, but also there, I think we have Senator Dolores and Dean and Eileen and I think. Okay, let's stop. Let's stop. Where were you in the line? Yes, okay. All right, so this is what I have, folks. I have Ruth, Annette, Ellen. I can't see who this is. Okay, Jordy, and then Dean.
Dolores.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Paige, okay. And guys, I think that's probably going to be all we have time for today. So Ruth, please.
All right, so for all of those saying that Lindsay shouldn't be terminated, this is more of the same. This is institutional racism. This is what Kim described. Is that just moving along, the system allowing it? Imagine if that were a Black woman talking about Jews. Okay. She would have been terminated. And the system would have just moved along with her resignation or her termination, right, if something like that had happened. Lindsay Moss, with her position as a vice president, that comes with some responsibilities. And when she says this, regardless of context, right, when she says this, and her own peers and other administrators says, Lindsay, you need to come here. You need to stay. Basically saying, Lindsay, this is your job. You need to stay. Lindsay, you need to be uncomfortable. Lindsay needed to walk back into that room. So she has failed at her job. So forget about context. She has failed at her job. And so we need to get comfortable with that. We need to get comfortable with the fact that those of us that are saying, well, it could happen to anyone. Right? Again, institutionalized racism. Would it really, would we have the same result had it been someone else, a different person saying something similar?
Thank you, Ruth. And Annette, I can't see you back, you're back there. Okay.
And I'm on sabbatical this semester, so I'm not happy to have to be here, but I have to be here. I've been here. I've been affiliated with this college since the month I graduated from high school. And I'm going to get emotional, like Melissa did, because this has seemed like home to me. Now, I have to admit that dramatically changed in 2015 when we had another incident like this. And I received personally over 100 emails. And it completely opened my eyes to who my colleagues actually were. And it was very sad. It was at the point where I couldn't walk on the campus without bursting into tears. I didn't want to be here anymore at a place that felt like my home since I was 18 years old. And I start that again right now. Just triggered all of those feelings. And I'm listening to people say how much they care about their colleagues, say how much they value their colleagues, say how shocked they were to find out that these things were happening. And I want you to think about that for a minute. If you were shocked to hear that this was happening to Black students, it's only because of your privilege. Mm-hmm. Because there were many of us who did not have the privilege of being shocked. We have known about it since day one. And if you would listen to your students, you would have known about it too. Because the students tell us. And if we actually care about them, we can't, there's no way. I'm sorry to call you out, but you cannot say you support them and then deny their request. It's a contradiction of terms. And it's exactly what somebody just said. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was. It's more of the same. The reason we even had the discussion was because Black students were telling us their voices were being silenced.
Faculty of color, we've been saying for a long time our voices are being silenced. And now I'm going to sit here and listen to a group of senators say that it's more important for them to be polite than it is to hear our voices. You are not the Senate for white faculty. I served as board president, as Senate president for many years at Allen Hancock College. I was the first Latina to serve in that position. I'm not sure we've had one here yet. That's something important for you to think about. If you don't, when you think about how shocked you were to hear about those two stories, I want you to consider how many other things you'd be shocked to hear. What is the rest of the story that you don't know? And yet you're willing to sit here and ignore the voices who do know. Black students and Black faculty are telling you what their experience is and what they need you to do to fix it. And if you don't want to listen to them, then live with your conscience, but don't call yourself an ally.
First, I want to, two things. I was at the meeting, the gender equity meeting. I know the context. I'm happy to give people details of the context. There were other people in this room who were at the meeting too. And context does not matter in terms of the impact of the word. So that's number one, it does not matter. But I also think it is relevant to say that the context was for at least 15 minutes or so before she used this word. We had been talking about a student survey of safety on campus, and she had been arguing against getting demographic data. And many people in the room are talking about specific instances of students experiencing racism or sexual assault or whatever, where if we have aggregate data with no information about who's speaking, it does not matter. She wanted to have two questions. Where do you feel most safe on campus? Where do you feel least safe on campus? And she said, for example, if people feel unsafe on the lower level of the library, we can add more lighting. And this is after people had been saying, these are the experiences of our students. Black students have been called the N-word in the library. These are, these are the experiences of female students who have experienced sexual assault on various places of campus. And she's arguing against getting demographic data because she does not want the survey to be too long. That's the context. That's important too. And that's getting lost in all of this, is that a whole group of people, many people of color, are trying to talk about the importance of getting data about what our students are experiencing. And she's incredulous about the fact that it happens and doesn't want to gather the data necessary in order to fully assess the problem. So I think that, for me, is, to be clear, I would be supporting the wishes of our Black students and faculty and staff regardless, because it's their call. They are the ones affected by this, as other people have said, it's their call. It's not my call as a white woman. And also, just for myself, that larger context is enough to indicate to me that she's not fit to be a vice president, where she's at right now. I will say also, I have nothing against Lindsay personally as a human. I actually reached out to her right after the meeting. I met with her for 2.5 hours on Friday afternoon to try to talk to her about how I've tried to do this work and give her some resources and offer my support in an ongoing way over time. We definitely had different impressions of the impact of what she had said, but she, our senses of the facts of what had happened in the meeting, her leaving, her not apologizing initially, just stating embarrassment, leaving, all of that was pretty much in alignment. 4 days later, she speaks to the media and sends the all-campus email through President Phoebe, completely different story, misrepresenting what happened. And you can ask anyone in the room about that. I know a dean who's in the room who has talked to the president about that. So this is the context for those of you who are like, oh, but what
what about Lindsay? It's so harsh for someone to lose her job over a mistake. It's much bigger than that. And the fact that she's a vice president also, if she were, like Akil said, if she were someone in a cubicle somewhere who does not have that kind of leadership role on this campus, that might be a different story. And I will say, I'm continuing to reach out to Lindsay, and this is not about some, personal vendetta that I have against her. It's about the position she's in, and I don't think she's qualified for that.
Ellen, thank you. Jordy? I would like to echo what Annette was saying earlier when she said that we may be shocked by our students enduring racism and sexism. And I just imagine how they must feel that we're so ignorant to them that we would be shocked. But what I really wanted to say was, I'm not attacking you, Mike, but you don't get to decide what hate speech is.
I get an opinion.
You don't get to decide what hate speech is, because I'm sorry, I'm not being very eloquent, but our students are telling us that they feel unsafe. Our faculty is telling us that they feel unsafe, and you don't get to tell them you shouldn't feel unsafe because that word was not in hate if they feel that it was hate speech. I feel powerless speaking on this, and I feel powerless in this room. And so if I, as a person who has been here for 11 years, feel powerless, imagine how our students feel. Thanks.
Dolores. Others have said it much better than I can, but I do go back to my question, what has been done? What immediate support is being given to Black students and our Black colleagues? And several months ago, when there were incidents that happened over the years, but too often those of us at this table are not really directly affected, the majority of us. And so it is easier to talk about being polite or civil or what training we'll need. And even a few months ago when the senator resigned and was told that she was out of order, I've been angry at myself since that day for not speaking up and saying, wait a minute, we're all out of order every day. And our students feel that. And if someone speaks up, at some point, I would like to know what support is being given the individuals that have gone through what they've gone through the last several months, the last several weeks. I would love for us to, instead of coming up with solutions, just ask people, will you give us the solution? Will you tell us what to do? And maybe that we need to follow that advice. We may need to ask people who have been asked to be quiet to say what they have to say. And that goes from those that spoke at the board meeting, to the senator who resigned. I would like her to be invited back. She should be invited back. And the students and the Black faculty and staff should be asked, what should we do? What do you need? And what support can you provide? And not come up with solutions, because I don't think any of us, at least myself, I don't think I know what that is, and I don't think any of us. Thank you, Dolores. Dean?
I'll be pretty quick. Also kind of pragmatic. Leadership partially derives from moral authority. And especially when one of your signature issues is social justice. I mean, that is a signature issue of the administration. And if you have an employee who undermines your signature issue, you've got a serious problem and the resultant loss of moral authority. So until you do something about that, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to say anything about that issue going forward. Personally, when I see a statement from now on, I see an asterisk at the end of it. And I think that's kind of a sad thing. And so it's been kind of hard on me these last couple of weeks. So I've been not saying a whole lot, but I do think that to me, that's the major issue is the effect rains down on the rest of us based on the position. If you're down here, colleagues come talk to me about this kind of stuff all the time. It just does this, right? It's not a big deal. But when you're at the top of the leadership structure of the college, what you do matters a lot. And the standards are higher. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that anyway. I mean, I don't really, when I've discussed this with people, they say to me, well, you know, maybe it's context. And I go, really? You've got trouble dropping the N-bomb in meetings? That's an issue for you? And everyone just, oh, no, never. I don't have an issue now. Well, you know, that's kind of my response to that. But the standards are much higher for people in senior positions. They are. And they should be because they have that power. And that issue is a big deal. And I do think it does, the resultant loss of moral authority is a real thing.
Thank you, Dean. Paige, you'll be on the last speaker. Which feels terrible. And I've never even come to mind of you. Well, thank you for coming. I'm a part-timer. I've been a part-timer for 11 years. Within my department, many of us have a lot of personal support and with regard to people not acknowledging. I've gotten a lot of emails, lots of hugs. I've gotten multiple hugs from people and a lot of support and been asked what can I do. And I appreciate that in my department. But as I said in the morning, I view two things as a way to not get more involved, that I am a person. I'm not part-time at work. I work in the USC2 as a researcher. And I am there 3 days a week and have always been. But I should have done more. I applied for a full-time position in biological sciences. In the process of actually talking to my colleagues, I realized I didn't have. When I really started to find out what it was like. And that's not good. As to whether someone needs to be held to a higher standard if they're in a higher part, a higher piece in the hierarchy, I'm sorry, that's not true. Everybody needs to be held to a very high standard of knowledge in this institution. We all work as young people. We are shaping their future. There is no excuse, whether you're at the top or at the bottom, for not being educated on these matters. And that's one of the inherent problems at the institution. People have not been vetted properly for the position they're in. And then they have not been completely trained properly to expand their minds. And some of these people have been here a long time, and they have never been pushed to come out of their comfort zone. And that is wrong. And I will tell you something, UCSB has a lot of problems. But that's not one of them. We are not allowed to not keep being trained to move forward on issues of justice for everyone. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is, or what sex you are, or how you like to live your personal life. We are expected to learn to deal with it appropriately. And the idea that no one here is expected to do that is shocking. That you're excited to go to a conference where a few people get to go and talk about these issues, that is shocking and wrong. And I don't want to be here full time. I didn't want to be. I didn't quit this job. My husband wanted me to quit. My husband is white. He wanted me to quit. I'm healthy right now. This place is not a healthy place. I didn't leave. There aren't enough black faces on this campus. I love my students. I want to work with my students. I stay here for that. But I'm ashamed of this place. And I'm ashamed of myself for not doing more and excusing myself. And I'm ashamed of a lot of people in this meeting and what they're still talking about. I don't know Lindsay, and I don't know whether she should or should not have a job. She clearly was promoted out of where she should have been. She should not have been ahead of the gender equity committee, ever. It's obvious she was not qualified. But right now, it sounds to me like some people maybe want to use this as an excuse to martyr her and go on and put the veneer back on, because that's what happens at this place. The veneer is so thin, it gets scratched, somebody sees something, whatever happened in 2015, whatever happened to somebody else. You get rid of the supposed problem, you paint it back over, and it's gone. This institution is wrapped with problems. People are not trained, they are not conscious of even how to think about what they should be thinking about. We need to do something a lot more. And I suggested in my email, I don't have a solution, but why aren't we making a space to talk about this? This is like with people with PTSD. They need to be able to talk freely and not be judged. Just to sit in a room with other people and talk.
Why haven't we set up a venue like that immediately? After this happened, and after that meeting on the 19th, why wasn't someone out there who has the power to do this, not on adjuncts like most of us are, saying, where is the space that is a good place on this campus for our students and our faculty to get together and talk freely with each other and see what they need to say so that healing can start, whether we have a solution for the big picture or not. I think we need to heal. And this is not helping us heal. Everybody pointing at everybody and saying, well, you can't tell me this and you can't tell me that. Everybody needs to talk. I want to hear it all. And I want everyone to feel free to say what they need to say. And the bigger decisions do have to be made. But we need to start there. Because every person in this room and on this campus needs a big hug right now. And somebody to say it's going to be okay. And I don't see that happening. And I'm so upset. And I have been crying every day since Thanksgiving when it started. And I know many other people who are. And that's not right. We need a place to go and cry together and heal. Not just cry alone and feel worse. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what, guys, we really have to stop now. We do. Do we want to talk about TRU limits?
No. Yes,
Not really.
maybe. Can I just say that everybody said much better than I could say anything, but it's, I have to say, it's not just administrative leadership. I wanted to say one thing about faculty leadership. I have heard multiple times in the last 3 months, coming from our faculty leadership, some of the people in this room, that there is a narrative on campus that this is a bad place to work and there are bad things going on, and that it's perpetrated by a small group of disgruntled faculty. I hope that today and last week and last year and Ray's resignation, it should say to people that the job is to listen, not to dismiss people's concerns by saying it's a narrative by a few disgruntled people. So I just want to say nobody's talked very much about our faculty leadership, and I hope if you've been responsible for part of that narrative, that you'll stop. Thank you. Sorry, Patricia, for saying that.
Robin did it, I should do one more thing. First of all, thank you for that. I think it's important to say that to this group, and I'm going to think about it too. I just needed to mention the idea of talking about Jews. It happened at the board meeting today, Ruth. If a Black woman said that about Jews, she'd be fired. And I just need to say, I watched the board meeting with my husband, who's Jewish, and I just want to share that that's the kind of thing that people don't always know, that is an anti-Semitic comparison. So I just needed to say that in this group, probably because I think this is being recorded, and I just wanted that to be part of it.
All right, we're now going to move on to item 6.2. And the way that we have framed this is request for a academic senate. That's okay. If anybody needs to leave,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I'm going to the council meeting.
No, it's an extension, so I understand. We still have a quorum, and we can still continue. All right, so request from the Academic Center for California Community Colleges for a technical assistance visit in connection with 7210. And I'm going to try very quickly to summarize how this is going to work. 2 weeks ago, I gave a presentation where I tried to lay out all of the different problems or challenges, choose your word, with 7210. They stem from the fact that we had TRU limits which have not been enforced over the years. They stem from the fact that parts of the procedure were starting to be enforced, but not others, and that were the other part of it, which is all MCTC stipends. Would that be enforced? That would have a big impact on certain people at this college. We also talked about the issue of past practice, and that being a legal concept. And then we talked about what, in my mind right now, is the really overarching thing about, do we continue to deal with these types of issues, which are clearly working condition issues, through administrative procedures at the Senate, or is it time to move those over to the faculty association through negotiation? I have answers to none of these questions, but I know they've been coming up again and again, and they really are kind of blocking any kind of specific action that we can take. So to that end, I told you guys 2 weeks ago, we've moved ahead with this. We have a team coming to the college. Give me the dates, Kim. It's the
January 18th. I want to highlight this too. I know you're getting to it.
Yeah.
So, don't be
Right. So we're not going to have time probably to do anything more than the second part of this. We have a team coming to the college. They're going to take a look at all of this. And they're going to look at this in terms of ed code, procedure and policy, and also what's statewide practice. And they're going to advise us on all of these issues. What's legal, what's best practice, what's common, all of these things. It starts with a survey that they're going to send. And I wanted us to talk about that, but we're going to run out of time. If you're comfortable with this, steering can work on the survey. But this is where we tell them these are the issues that we want to have advice on.
Can we share a Google Doc with Senate to look at that survey?
Well, yeah, I haven't received it yet.
The one where like people can have input.
Absolutely, but I think that's going to be the next step here. And then they're going to come, they're going to take a look at this, they're going to talk to us. So, in light of this, we wanted to bring up the idea of halting or postponing the enforcement of 7210 until we can get this technical assist completed and understand where we stand with these bigger issues of where does it live, what does it mean, how much of it are we going to enforce. And so that is what we need to discuss in the, I know the app is not very good with the few minutes that we have left. I'm going to go sit down so I can take notes.
I'd like to make the motion that the administration postpone its current enforcement of TLU limits for summer 1 and 2 and fall 2018 until the technical assistance is completed.
Second. Can't get there fast enough.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is a typo. Fall 2019.
Yeah, and also I would recommend that you make a recommendation to administration. You can't actually legislate them.
Okay, guys, that's all. I think this is important because this is a procedural question which we need to sort out. So first, we would actually have to agree to be able to move this to action, right?
Yep.
All right, so
Would you like, I made a motion to move this item to action.
okay, can I have a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Dolores and seconded by Mike to move this proposal as stated, except for the typo, to action.
Which typo?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm not actually voting. I don't vote. I'm just giving an example. Say aye. Right. Or you can raise your right hand. All opposed, nay, and abstentions. All right, now I think we need to entertain a motion to that effect.
So I would like to make a motion that the administration postpone its current
That
enforcement.
we
Recommend, I'm sorry, recommend, that the administration postpone its current enforcement of TLU limits for summer 1 and 2 and fall 2019 until the technical.
Second.
All right, again, moved by Dolores and seconded by Mike. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So, do we?
Are we still gonna
Just did anyway.
I know. Do you guys need any further discussion on the tech team, what they're gonna do?
Are you
I do.
cool with it? I would like to know more.
I would like to have.
I
do
don't feel
have
like
a
your
few questions.
presentation really told us exactly what they do it with.
Well, let me tell you, I've got like a bunch of links that would explain a lot of this step, this step. They're in the Senate folder, they're actually linked there, so that will help a lot.
But this order, there's no commitment. I mean, they just come in.
Okay. It's a body.
Yeah.
They
It's not,
educate us.
they're not like, it's just like outside
No,
people
no.
who like talk to other faculty when they're struggling with the administration.
Sure.
Advisory in nature.
So my question in all of this is, there's obviously, as you presented, a question, is the AS here going to play the lead role, or is the FA going to play the lead role? And I guess my thoughts are, if, and I'm leaning that way, to ask the FA to take over this, do they want this thing? I mean, why are we spending $1,000 if it doesn't come to that recommendation?
No, it's not that. This is an educational session where they come and we invite all the faculty
Okay.
to come, and all of you should invite all of your faculty members and really encourage them to come, because what
Sure.
they'll do is they'll explain how this is working for us, how other colleges do the same type of negotiations. Actually, at any time, the faculty association could decide to negotiate these things. At any time, the administration could decide to negotiate these things. They have allowed us the time to engage our faculty in the Senate process to become more educated. And then we will go from there. But there's no decision that will be made at that tech review. This is your tech visit. This is just an educational session.
Right, but it's also the AS here who is asking for it. And
Yeah.
so my question is, would the FA even want it? Why would we spend $1,000?
So that's not good. But I mean,
Per
I think the
visit.
FA is interested. Yeah,
But I guess I'd like to hear what the FA thought and where, and
No, Mary's here, Mary's here. Jordy has left. Jordy has left.
Well, these items are actually in the legal obligation of the FA. So
Right.
it wouldn't even matter if the FA wants it or not, but for sure, this is our duty by the law. And if there is, at the moment, these are some of our duties are delegated to the academic senate. The moment the academic senate does rather want the FA to take that over, the FA is there to take these items.
Anna, and then Pamela, please.
Yes.
And I was going to ask a question, but I first want to respond to what Kathy said. Yes, technically the FA can pull this back at any time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to point out that we can do that for pretty much almost everything. And
Right.
we aren't doing that. Like, that's not the way, that's not
Right.
usual practice.
Right.
So I don't want that to be like, ooh, that's they can pull it back.
No, no.
I know.
The power to do that.
It would be,
Right,
it
but
would
we
be a
do
big
with
deal.
a lot of other things, and you don't do that very, like, really.
We'll
ever.
talk about it.
Yeah. And then also I was just wondering, so it's my impression that our thin contract is very unique and not very common with all of it. So does the ASCCC have much experience in dealing with that? So how helpful might they be in recommending?
Well, they're not even gonna really talk about whether we should have a thin contract or not. They're gonna talk about the issues, how colleges deal with these issues. And
Oh, I
give us
thought-
some
I thought it was-
perspective.
I thought the main thing was deciding whether to
That's
recommend
our-
whether for the FA to
No,
do it
that's-
or us to do
No,
it.
no, that's our decision. They're not gonna decide that for us.
When they, I thought
I'm
they
not
were gonna
even
make a
gonna-
recommendation. I thought that was how it was presented. That was one of the main reasons they were coming.
That's one of the, we're bringing them in to help give us information so that we can be ready to make that decision.
Right.
So it's information, I guess it's bringing in an outside group to tell us, this is what other colleges are doing, this is what the law is, this is how this interplays, and then we will use that to decide.
Right. They're not gonna.
Pamela? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to clarify. So when you say this is what other colleges are doing, you're saying what their policies are?
Yeah.
Well, whether they have a thin contract, a thick contract, how this works throughout the state.
Oh, we don't know that.
Well, but there have been some colleges that have done this. We just need education.
But in our agenda, it says recommendations and an advisory report.
Right. It's a report of information. They're not gonna make a recommendation. Pamela?
I've lived through one of these at Preston when you were struggling with participatory governance, and so the function of the statewide academic senate is to help understand really good practices around participatory governance. And then if you have an issue, which is usually when you call them, but they would actually probably rather come in and kind of already help you, and they want to help you enforce you. Like those things, right? You're like, oh, this thing happened, and we're not sure how to get past it.
Okay, ever healthy.
Right,
I'm done.
yeah,
Go.
we're working on it, right? So usually the goal of this is these are folks who are experts in this kind of participatory governance work. And then you offer up, here's our stuff, here's how we talk about our stuff, here's how we look at these things, these are, our normative practices. Here's the thing we found ourselves having a challenge about, and we're trying to think through how we want to approach this. They're not going to leave here with this advisory report that says, move this to FA, increase the TLUs to 25%, right? That's not going to be their role. Their role is going to help structure and support the thinking and conversations in here to make this a strong body.
to think about what are the ways that people want to approach this unusual circumstance. So they're not going to come in and be experts on the free contract, because really, that's us. Right? We're pretty unique in the state with that. But they're going to say, here are things to think about while you're considering these kinds of practices. Here's why a school might do it this way. Here's why another school might do it this way. How are you doing at your representative body? We've heard some commentary today about, what are some things that the Senate might think about itself and practices it might think on. So it'll be kind of a broad spread conversation. And the survey can help target what the things are that they'll pay closer attention to while they're thinking about it. It's a pretty interesting group. So, I looked at it 8 years ago, so that it'll be its own thing here, but it was a positive experience. We learned in lots of ways. And it can also be healthy for administration to be working with the Senate after that. So if you're thinking that there are ways you want to do enforcement practices, this can be a real strengthening decent representation.
So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all so very much.